Hey Jayanth, good to see you.
Leslie, good to see you again.
Yes, absolutely. I forgot to see thee again because we see each other every week.
Absolutely.
And viewers and listeners, I know Jayanth and I, we have the usual banter, and I keep on asking him how this weekend was. I don't think your weekend was very eventful. Come on, don't lie to me.
It was all about travel. I was flying back from KL to Chennai, driving from Chennai to Bangalore. So,
But the
so
Beryl
uneventful.
hurricane was happening in Barbados,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
in.
yeah. Exactly. So this weekend is much many more things happened. Okay, so compared to that, it was uneventful. Yes, I was just in a flight
Absolutely.
and a
I
car.
know. One of those weekends, perhaps, which was a little uneventful. And even in the field of AI, I mean, Gen AI rather, nowadays we say Gen AI more than AI. Even that has not been very eventful, but we'll come to that in a bit. Viewers and listeners, if you're wondering who the third person is here on the screen, that's Ashwin Swarup Adurthi, who's the VP of Data Science and Data Engineering at Nimblework. Of course, and that company was called Digit. Did I pronounce it rightly?
It was, and that was the precise reason why we renamed the company. It was called, it actually originated from the word digital transformation, and we wanted to make it sound French, so we made it Digite. And
Digite. Okay,
yes,
okay,
and
okay.
then it turns out to be we share a very similar name with the Digit magazine, and we had a large number of requests to close their subscriptions coming to our office, and so we then decided it's high time we rebrand.
That's one magazine I remember because in my previous life I was actually the managing editor of Digit.
Such a great
In
coincidence.
a very previous life, I'm talking almost like
Back
few
few
lives
lives
back.
back.
So yeah, so that was really very and this I always say when it's a digit, I said digit with an accent,
Digit with
or
a
rather,
a French accent.
yeah,
A
digit
French
with a
accent.
French accent or digit with a French attitude. Of course, friends, his company is building KAIron, a generative AI platform for digital transformation. And Ashwin leverages data science algorithms to solve industry specific challenges across sectors, obviously. And very interestingly, in a recent talk at the Data Engineering Summit 2024, it was titled Operationalizing Foundational Models Using KAIron. What a boring title. But and I think that's the reason why Ashwin sort of spoke about the intricacies of making data science and data engineering more functional and impactful. Now, there are two things that, I didn't see the entire,
Talk.
the talk, but the interesting part was two or three things caught my attention. One is, of course, the suggestion that you gave that given the current limitations of LLMs, you had suggested combining foundational models with traditional data engineering techniques using, say, things like Spark or Lucene to extract and highlight the implicit relationships. But more interesting than that is also, and I'm quoting Ashwin on this. I'm paraphrasing Ashwin a bit. Is that he said that I'm both a data scientist and a data engineer.
Yeah.
And he's saying the data scientist dreams, the data engineer does, and therefore the data scientist could lose their data scientists could lose their jobs to automation. Data engineers perhaps would not
Yeah.
probably in a longer time frame to lose their jobs
No,
to
I was
automation.
talking to Jayanth about it as well. That I see data science essentially like an Ouroboros, a snake that eats its own tail, right? So we are getting rid of our own jobs by automating everything, right? So the nature of and it's not somewhere in the distant future. The nature of data science itself is changing so drastically. It's becoming so
Ashwin,
individual data.
Ashwin,
Yes,
I'm going to interrupt out here
yes.
because there are two or three things. One is, of course, for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, we don't take things for granted. So I'd like you to explain first the difference between data science and a data scientist and a data engineer.
Right.
Because I can assure you, many of them won't know the difference. Both
Yes.
may have computer science background. One may do statistics, the other may do design and architecture. But I
Yeah.
think you're the right person to explain the difference.
Yes. And I have a physics background. So the idea is that whenever we are talking about searching for patterns in data structures, irrespective of what that data structure may be, right? That is the job of a data scientist. And these patterns could be linear patterns, so that could be something as simple as regression and marketing data, or it could be complex non-linear models like optimization and so on and so forth. When we say optimization, we mean how fast can I deliver this particular good? How fast can I get a conveyor belt based process or a manufacturing industry do better or faster, right? Optimization. So there you're actually studying the data in order to come up with some kind of patterns. And these patterns in eventuality become a set of rules, and those rules become models, right? And therefore, the older terms of statisticians or statistics, which was a concept of saying, can I build a single line that represents a large number of data points? That essentially converted it itself to data science. So you'll have a large number of statisticians becoming data scientists for that reason. And then, of course, you have machine learning coming into picture because everything does not follow a line. So there's a lot of non-linearity in this world. So that you say that, okay, fine, I will not learn by modeling something. I will learn by looking at different examples, and then machine learning comes into picture. But this entire scheme or flow of things that you have in terms of, oh, I need to build a model, oh, I need to look at data and come out with rules or patterns, this needs to finally get operationalized in an industry because models will evolve, right? By definition, models are a subset of the real world, right? That means they don't represent the real world. So you have these models need to continuously evolve with the kind of data that is being used to build them, because data also evolves and as data generating systems evolve. So for that, you need data engineers. So data scientists may do a job, but data engineers will not, because the models that drive it will continue to exist.
And both will automate their functions, and both will ultimately lose their jobs and do something
Correct.
else. No, I mean, of course,
And Leslie, I think this is one of the most uh, clean definitions and explanations that anyone can find anywhere. I mean, let alone a podcast.
no,
Anywhere
absolutely.
to
That's why I said
yeah.
Ashwin is the right person to
Correct.
make those differences, make the and give the right kind of definitions and show
And if
people
you
the kind of
remember
nuances.
correct. And if you remember correctly, to Ashwin's point earlier, you and I discussed at some point, have you seen one of the jobs that ChatGPT and generative AI has eaten up? It's data scientists. Remember, I mean, we were talking about it in the last 1.5 years. People are not hiring data scientists anymore, and that's exactly what Ashwin talked about
Yeah, but
earlier.
Jayanth, I mean, if you want to, if you really slice and dice what we just said, remember that the World Economic Forum, when it spoke about the kind of jobs that will
Right.
probably, be there, more the blue collar jobs rather than the white collar ones.
Exactly.
So you'll have plumbers and electricians having a better chance of surviving than
Yes.
these jobs.
In fact, I was talking to someone from the manufacturing industry, and one thing that it occurred to me is that the value of manufacturing tangible stuff goes up drastically, and those jobs will do better. And what will happen eventually is they'll become a host for AI, uh, because unless you combine something as horizontal as data science into some kind of verticalized domain, it has no raison d'etre. I mean, it doesn't have its existence of its own, right? So yeah.
But this is interesting that you said that, Ashwin, because the other side of it is that eventually, when we are talking about software automation, when we
Yes.
are talking about AI automation, when we're talking about AI writing AI code and AI itself, correcting AI code, like what OpenAI's critic GPT has done with Chat GPT code. Yeah,
Yes.
so it was just announced. I mean, I think on the 27th of June.
Right.
But now, these are kind of interesting things. But on the other side, when you look at the hardware part of it, also, the interesting thing is that there are humanoids. I was just reading like Agility Robotics. They came up with something. I mean, robots as a service is something that has been around for
Yes.
almost more than a decade. But
Right.
you suddenly have humanoids being
Yes.
carted with Gen AI, of course,
Yeah.
as robots as a service. So was sometimes thinking that in the future, I mean, we are not talking about something which is 2 or 3 years from now, but maybe
Right.
5 years. And you never know how this technology progresses. Nobody
Yes.
expected ChatGPT to show us the face of generative AI. Uh,
The
just
way
one
it
and a
did.
half year back. Yeah, the way it did. So you never know. You may have plumbers, electricians coming home. At least in developing countries where the cost of labor is pretty high. So if
Yes.
it's done as a service on a lighter note, you never know.
Yes. I mean, and it doesn't seem to be too far away because we're looking at cybernetics and Neuralink. They're essentially integrating external hardware into the human body. So we can move from robotics to cyborgs soon enough. In all essence, with a mobile phone always attached to our phone, we are in ways so cyborgs, right? How detached are we from phones? We are. It's just I just have to take the phone and implant it in my brain, and I'm a cyborg, aren't I? So
You remember, Jayanth, the concluding chapter of the book where
Exactly. Let's say
where,
I was about to say Ashwin, and you have so many. He just got into your another favorite topic, which is philosophy. He's his company used to sound like a magazine that you were a managing editor of in the past. He has a physics background like you do, and he just stepped into philosophy, which is your favorite topic of discussion
I,
or
I,
subject of
I,
discussion.
I did 2 years of philosophy, so I guess I
Yeah.
think I know quite a bit. But it's interesting because today AI, you cannot speak about AI and generative AI without talking about these whether you're sociology, whether it's philosophy, whether it's anthropology, whether it's
Yeah.
psychology. You have to. It's not a linear kind of field. It's a concept at the end of the day. I mean,
Exactly.
time and again, I think, and Ashwin would be the right person to tell our viewers and listeners if I am wrong. But basically, AI is, I think Jayanth and I always have been, we keep on reiterating that AI is a concept. It's not, and then there are a host of technologies under it, generative AI being one of them.
Right.
So, I mean, sometimes I get
One
too
form of
carried
it.
away.
One form
Yeah,
of it. Yes.
yeah.
The current form of it. Yeah.
in fact, we were Jayanth and I were joking about this that a person with a bucket on his head is also AI, and then when you kick the one is behind, it is generative AI because
Generate.
yes, right. So yeah, I mean, I think very soon what we will see is this transition from uh, people saying everything is AI to something more specific happening, right? You're saying, hey, this is I want to do optimization, right? So these words or jargon, which were earlier very restricted to the data science field, will start taking a new meaning in the general world because AI
Will
will
become
become
more
too
mainstream.
broad.
Will
Yeah,
become
yeah,
more mainstream.
more mainstream because AI will become too broad. So when you say I have AI, you say what AI do I have, right? So yeah, I see that happening as well, Leslie.
And also, I would like you to shed a little more light on this whole thing because many people get confused between traditional AI and, the transition to generative AI.
Yes.
Now, typically, what we always tell people that, okay, if, the strength of traditional AI would be analysis and prediction on historical data or, data per se, more structured data than unstructured
Trend
data. The,
analysis, pattern recognition, and prediction.
So
absolutely.
I have a slightly contrarian view to that. So
Oh,
there,
lovely. Please,
so
we love contrarian views.
yes. So the idea is that because of the kind of traction you've seen with large language models and generative AI, they have started being placed as a layer or a stage above normal AI, saying that that's the next AI, right? That is not true, right? Because in fact, there's a very statistical reason behind it, right? Generative AI models based on the current architecture that is being used, and I'm slightly using technical jargon here, which may be confusing to our users, but the jargon that I use is transformers. That is the current architecture being used. These are powerful sequence learners, okay? So if you remember earlier, we used to do statistical prediction time series analysis, and we wanted to learn sequence in order to predict what will happen in the future. Uh, in a sense, these transformers are very powerful sequence learners because language is a sequence, right? And in fact, I know some startups that are working on genomics using large language models because genomics is also a sequence, right? Now, and that's precisely what I was covering in the talk the other day at Data Engineering Summit. where we said that, yes, these are very powerful sequence learners that learn everything. They mug up. They're essentially a 10 board exam students, right? With 99%, they mug up everything. So, but they don't understand concepts. Any concepts that they know are through the fact that there is some training data that has put these two concepts together, but they explicitly don't understand concepts, right? So if you take ChatGPT, in the initial sets of versions, it was very bad at logic, right? So if you look at what ChatGPT and generative AI are bad at, you'll progressively realize that very bad at philosophy. Because ChatGPT will never give you an opinion. They're designed not to give you an opinion, right? So, so generative AI is only a mechanism to access the vast field of AI, and like, for example, optimization problems, right? This ChatGPT can't do optimization problems. So if you say, hey, I have got 30 centers in Bangalore, which are warehouses, and I need to figure out how goods travel from one warehouse to the destination location efficiently while keeping my workforce down, right? These kind of questions is not what ChatGPT is good at. So ChatGPT is a very good part of the arsenal or the tool sets that we have as data scientists or data engineers or organizations for that matter, but they're not over and above the previous machine learning and AI that we had. In fact, they're not above statistics either, right? So this is my contrarian opinion.
No, it's absolutely right, because Jayanth and I have been discussing this at length, and we keep on insisting. Practically, I think every podcast, every episode of this podcast,
Right.
we have been, sort of insisting on this point that, these are complementary. In many
Yes.
cases, so, and their functions are different. Sometimes there are many things that traditional AI can do that generative AI can't.
Yes.
And yeah, because, and as you rightly said, like where drug discovery, protein folding, etc. Yes, generative AI is being used, but that doesn't mean that traditional AI is gone. There are certain functions
Yes.
that are being used there. These are being built upon.
And the real power and the potential will be identified in a use case to use case scenario where people know how best to use both the traditional
Correct.
AI and the generative AI, and that changes for every use case, every company, and every enterprise and every industry, mind you, and in every region.
The agentic AI would be a classic example of
Classic
how you can
example.
combine both these traditional AI, and whether it's a
Correct.
rule-based chatbot to an LLM-based chatbot to agentic AI. And I think Ashwin would be the right person to, explain.
You've hit the nail on the head, right? That you hit the nail on the head. So the generative AI technology becomes a medium through which you can access various other AI, in the sense that at this juncture, if I want to write a linear regression code, right, I need to know how to prepare my data. I need to know how to what independent variables are, what is correlation between variables. All these are stuff that I need to know. But with generative AI, if I say, hey, here's my data, run a linear regression and predict what will happen, it can give you that information that is missing. So the access to AI has become much, much easier. So, and that's precisely how you see things manifesting in AI, but not only that, in coding as well, right? So sometime earlier we were talking, I was reading somewhere, and I'm not able to cite my source there, but the point that they were saying is that the lower end developers, the entry level developers, they will have a hard time in the future, because that is what Gen AI is taking away, because it's taking the rudimentary level of skill sets that are needed, right? The base level skill set. And jobs are also going to evolve in that way, because jobs will then become the job, rather, for example, the role of developers, the role of data scientists will be about understanding exceptions rather than the rules, because they need to correct the model when it goes wrong. The standard stuff will keep happening and that will be automated, but when does it go wrong? How do I interpret this? That is where the knowledge will lie, and that is happens only when you have years of practice and years of working on real data sets, right? So that is my in fact, that is my worry as well, because when I'm looking at young data scientists who are joining our teams and looking at data engineers, uh, the idea of making mistakes and learning is being reduced by depending on ChatGPT to give you that initial set. And
Right.
let's
Right.
be realistic. Let's say that ChatGPT generated a code for me to understand linear regression, right? How often would I go back and query and understand what the intricacies of linear regression are? I wouldn't. That is not human nature. I would rather say he's given me the code, let me just use it, deploy it, I'm done, right?
Yeah.
That is my worry.
Yeah. So in a way, if just like exactly how we use calculators, or in our engineering, how we used to use scientific calculators. I mean, a
Yes.
simple multiplication of 45 by 75. Okay, we just interested in the answer, but we don't go back and do the multiplication methodology to understand the intricacies of multiplication.
So right.
Similar to how we used to use scientific calculators.
I always like to make that comparison between the iPhone and the Android. So I mean, or rather Windows and Linux. One wants to hide the complexity, one wants to show the complexity. But we have always been the Linux users. So we want. I used to love writing on Unix, and because I used to get that kick out of it.
Yes.
I never got out of a Windows thing. Okay, fine, you just
Windows
write
tries
it.
to hide complexity until you hit a bug. But yes.
Absolutely.
People like us are, minority in number and outliers, Leslie.
No,
But
I think there's value in both. I mean, I
agree.
wouldn't diss the other part of it. I think some
No.
people just do not want the complexity and they're okay with it.
Correct.
But I think to the point that Ashwin is making and that we have also been talking about is so I'm connecting it to what happened recently, because typically we during this podcast we also discuss recent developments and try to connect them for our viewers and listeners. So the Global India AI Summit is going on even
Ongoing right
as we speak. So 3rd and 4th of July. So by the time this podcast would be out, the summit would be over. But what caught my interest in was Srinivas of OpenAI, the VP, head of engineering, was speaking at the venue, and then Ashwini Vaishnav, who is the Union Minister for IT and Telecom. So he also was speaking. Very interestingly, when Ashwini Vaishnav was speaking, he, of course, he did reiterate some points, but he made the mention that he would like to create an AI platform in India. Okay. Now, AI platform could mean many things. Of course, it could mean your computing. It could, I'm not getting into the because AI compute. The way we understand platform from a technology perspective and the way it is being put out. I think there was he did elucidate on certain points that were there. Some of the things that he mentioned was, of course, the 10,000 GPUs that he wants to create, the large data sets that he wants to get into the country, how he's creating the semiconductor ecosystem, etc., tying in the same things that we have discussed ad nauseum during these podcasts. But the interesting part is what from this is possible and what is not possible. Creating an AI computing platform, especially when the technologies are moving at such a rapid pace, which are the companies that have actually survived? Because he's also talking as part of this AI platform, helping deep tech startups to, helping them in the at the early stages of funding.
Right.
But just a thought, came across, and Ashwin and you can weigh in on this. Is that what kind of startups are you really going to fund, and what kind of business models are they going to do? Because the entire platforms themselves are getting automated as of today. Everything that is being created by most companies actually end up being wrappers at this point in time. So.
At the application level, at the solution level. But so Ashwin, you give yours.
Yeah, Ashwin should be.
I'll butt in with my thoughts. Yeah.
So the idea that, this comes from the initial discussion or the challenge that was thrown by Sam Altman, right? That, hey, you guys don't build your own LLMs, use our foundational models. The problem with, and the point is, we cannot take that lying down. We shouldn't, right? Because only when we start going down that direction of making these mistakes, of understanding what is going wrong with these foundation models, do we increase our own knowledge of what foundational models are. And that gives you the impetus of actually learning and architecting new transformer models or the architectures of neural networks, right? That being said, of course, business has to survive and business has to earn revenue. And therefore, as we also heard, that India will become the LLM application capital of the world. That means we will be the guys who will be making sure that LLMs and generative AI are used in various applications. And precisely those are the startups that will earn the funding, because you're taking something which is as horizontal as generative AI, and then you're able to figure out how do I ease access for common users to specific industry verticals. I mean, the manifestation of this in terms of government services, in terms of uh, you know, about knowledge that common citizens receive about government information, uh, very pertinent information. I mean,
Ashwin,
yeah,
let me give you some context around this, because I
yes,
think it's important, because I think you are on the you have sort of
yeah,
yeah, absolutely. But the reason why Ashwini Vaishnav was speaking about it, and the government way of looking at it, is to create an AI platform that is comparable to the digital stack, the India digital stack.
yes,
So whether
yeah,
like the whole list of so whether it is for healthcare, whether it is for payments, whether it is for financial services, or whatever it be. So you
Retail,
can extend it.
logistics, yeah.
Retail, logistics. You have the ONDC. You have the
yeah,
UPI. You have the account aggregator systems, etc. Now the whole question is, if you're trying to create an AI platform, is it comparable?
yes, it
Or
is.
is the nature difference? Because here, when you're creating a beacon protocol for the ONDC platform, the ONDC platform itself is not as dynamic as the AI system. That is my whole question, because the kind
The
of
backend protocol is,
technologies.
yeah, backend protocol is more for the digital public
Yeah.
infrastructure, wherein ONDC is one of the first DPI to use it, but the protocol itself is designed for, building DPIs.
And also one more question, Ashwin, because you are the hardcore techie out here. Now, you were speaking about transformer models. Transformer models came out in 2017. Jan LeCun
17.
is already talking about alternatives to the transformer model, which are far more efficient than that. And we are already talking about whether they're neural transformers or whatever they are, graphormers, neural transformers. I guess you will have a dozen more.
Kolmogorov Arnold.
Yeah, exactly. I said. And we have conveniently forgotten LSTM, which is coming back in vogue. We have
Yeah, yeah.
conveniently for RNNs and CNNs, etc. But having said that, I'm just trying to say, an AI platform which is being built, will it be able to cope up with all the kind of newer technology that are coming and changing the way business itself is done? And that is, it's a little tricky question. I know that I'm.
Yeah, I mean, it's early days, and it's very difficult to predict the future. But that being said, because it is difficult to predict, we should not stop trying. I mean,
No,
I
we
think,
should be doing it.
I have an opinion here, Leslie. Yeah, and if we'd like to break up the AI stack into different layers, let's take at the very fundamental level the layer of infrastructure or the compute itself, right? The entire compute infrastructure is one layer where it can be platformized, and remember here it's the government, or it's the Indian government which is trying to play a role here. So, and as far as the government is concerned, data sovereignty or data localization is a big
Yeah, yeah.
initiative that the government is pushing. And for all things AI that we need data, okay, we know that not just at the national level, now we are looking at data sovereignty and data localization even at a state level. And purely from a functional point of view, localized data centers or decentralized data centers to handle the data that is being used and also generated by these AI models and solutions. Okay, that in itself is a layer that can be established, and where the government can play a role. I mean, decentralized data
And
centers.
the
Then
government has already played a role. You yourself know it, because in the healthcare, for
yeah,
instance,
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah,
already there, and
exactly.
you have worked on some of those
Exactly.
projects.
So, and then the next thing is the data sets. If you look at especially the Indian languages, local languages data sets, government and yeah, governments and universities are some holders of some of the biggest local languages data sets. Okay, now that making that data set available for building AI models or building even Indic languages LLMs in a certain way, there can be there is an opportunity for developing or platformizing that. So
Not
platform
so. So the
platformization in
government.
the data sets aspect.
the government is not restricting itself only to Indic LLM, because Indic LLMs is just one part of it and a very small
No,
part
Indic
of it.
LLM is one manifestation of using government data sets.
But
Okay.
I
So
think both of you are right. Absolutely, they're talking about healthcare, agriculture, education are also.
No,
yeah.
I just wanted to support what we were saying in terms of what Jayanth was saying in terms of custodians. It's not just an opportunity; it's a necessity.
Necessity. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
The fundamental thing that we want to solve with generative AI for, say, India, in terms of the government of India and the services that are offered, in my opinion, the biggest thing that they want to solve is accessibility. And accessibility in your local language and your local dialect. At this day and age, Tulu is very different from Kannada, and within Telugu itself, based different regions of Andhra Pradesh will speak Telugu.
At
Dialects
least
are
three
very
different
quite different.
accents. Yeah.
Yes, so there are some far-reaching consequences of this. It's not just about the technology and the accessibility, but it's also about equality as well, because I want to preserve my language, right? I want to preserve my language, and that happens only when I have access to my governments for services through that language and my dialect, right? So regional identity, it's a necessity, not just an opportunity, Jayanth. And
So to conclude and summarize my thought process across the AI stack, right? Data centers, okay, the physical infrastructure, the foundational models, like what Ashwin talked about, then the data sets, okay, and creating a whole data fiduciary for the custodian and accessibility of these data sets. Then the application layer, where again Ashwin talked about India becoming one of the biggest LLM app player. Okay, these are all the areas and the layers in the AI stack itself where platformization is possible and is needed, and government can definitely play a role, and thereby funding startups or companies with different views and different returns and policies, okay, in each of these layers. So government can definitely play a role, and if something comes out of this 2-day summit, it will be actually awesome.
My only objection to this entire discussion that we've had is every time we use the word LLM layer, I think we should just remove that. We just say language model layer, because none of them are LLMs. All of them are SLMs to the best knowledge. So I think
in the India context currently.
Exactly. So I think we should just stick to language models. I think they make a lot more sense. But otherwise, it's absolutely true. I mean, I have written reams about this, that this is a necessity, given the geopolitical structure that we have, given the thing. Of course, it's easier said than done. I also mentioned that. But, as I think Ashwin and we have also discussed on this podcast time and again, that the government is trying, we really need to pitch in, all of us, and figure out how the industry does it.
So this is
it's a necessity.
Yeah, and this is a bit of nationalism playing in as well, in the sense that the world will of course say that don't try it because they want to sell their services to us, right? It's inevitably so. But we did that in the 70s and we lost out on microchip manufacturing, and today where is fab manufacturing and where is India in that, right? We have stuck ourselves to design. We are excellent at chip design, but where's the manufacturing, right? And now we are slowly starting, and we cannot criticize the government saying, oh, we have not hit that technology level, we are far behind. Unless you build that layer by layer by layer, it's a patient and slow process.
And it takes time. It takes time. It takes a few decades. It takes a few decades.
I think we will get there eventually. We are trying. I mean, and I think, and we have tremendous strengths in certain areas, like, okay, whether it's the ESDM, the whole semiconductor design ecosystem. But tremendous in skills. I think we are on the top of the table. I mean, so we have AI skills to do with it. Yes, if the government is creating an AI platform, there could be a competition for AI skills. But I think that's a good thing. We'll probably get some, at least it will increase the level of engineering, the school, the quality of the students that come out from engineering schools, because I don't think the quality is anything to really talk about at this point in time.
Talking of engineering students and students passing out of our engineering colleges, I'd like to get back to one of the things that Ashwin talked about and touched about, and probably he's one of the few guests who can answer this deeply. Is this entire thing about AI writing code and AI? You mentioned that the entry level software developers work. Today AI can do it. If you think of students passing out of engineering colleges or technology colleges getting into the IT industry for writing code, or entry level software developers, or even medium level software developers, Ashwin, give us some little in-depth view, your personal view of where is AI today and how is it progressing, and if you can put in some kind of a timeline, 5, 10 years, 3 years down the line, how is AI progressing in terms of writing code, and what will happen to the software developers or people looking at picking software coding or development as a profession or a career?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's close to my heart as well, uh, because I want to talk about. So we talk about code, right? But I want to draw a very small equivalence to say uh, writing articles. Let's start as simple as that, right? So the thing is that the commonality between AI and human beings is how they learn. So and this is I'm essentially distilling entire mathematical functions into common language. So there's some generalization. You'll have to pardon me for that, right? Yes. So there's a commonality between how humans and AI learn. Or AI, I'm saying generalizing it, but all algorithms learn, right? So what you do is you try something, okay? You make a mistake, right? You know what you're trying to achieve, and you know what is the attempt you made. There's a gap between these two, right? That gap needs to come down in the next attempt that I make, right? So in essence, how you are learning, how as human beings, how we are learning and how we are understanding the world around us is by making mistakes, understanding the gap between what we have tried and what the objective is, take that distance and minimize that error. Minimize that error. That error minimization is exactly how AI learns and how human learn. Right? Now, at this juncture, in the current state that AI is learning to make these mistakes and it's continuously reducing its errors. So it will evolve very rapidly. But those mistakes were supposed to be made by junior developers because it's important for their learning.
Right. Right.
They cannot make these mistakes because AI is making those mistakes, reducing the error and giving them something that's already cooked.
Mm.
So if I give you pre-fed meals, when will you learn to chew? Right? And that is where my problem is. The only appreciation of any vertical or knowledge field is when you're able to understand exceptions, when not to do stuff, right? And you ask, it is applicable to all fields. You ask musicians, music lies in silences, right? It's not the notes that you right you have played, but the silence.
Right.
And that's what an expert does, right?
Yeah.
So it's about exceptions. So only the expertise will only happen when you have understood, okay, these are the errors, this is where the exceptions happen, and when not to use this. And that only happens when you make those mistakes. And when juniors can't, or when entry-level software engineers cannot make those mistakes, then how do they achieve that expertise? At this juncture, and that's what's happening. The experts in the AI field, or the experts who have already achieved mastery in that particular vertical, know what good looks like. So they can manipulate AI to do a better job in writing articles. So you know what, so as a person who has written so many articles, you guys have written books, so you know what good text looks like. And therefore there's a certain expectation that you want to achieve, say, by using AI, and say, hey, you need to use these kind of words, you need to use this kind of prose, and you're able to hit that level. But a junior writer will not have that appreciation. So, and my favorite statement, a fool with a tool remains a fool, right?
That's a good one.
No, but Ashwin, you're absolutely, I think you nailed it. And
I think that parallel is very good.
Yeah. No, I think it's an extremely important analogy, because I was just thinking about it. And in fact, actually, I was discussing it with Adarsh also, my wife, for the benefit of her viewers and listeners. And we were just talking about it. So she's a hardcore, she's a designer. So she understands it. So for her, when I asked her, I said, what do you use ChatGPT for, or Midjourney or DALL-E? He's saying, for me, because I understand it, I can use it. She's saying, because I know where it is going wrong. So you say I wouldn't want to use it, say for instance, I like, okay, Ashwin said that he's got a physics background. I also share the physics background. So I wouldn't, for chemistry, I would be very careful with ChatGPT because I would have to cross check that. I'm very comfortable with astrophysics. Because those are areas that I understand well. I don't need to cross check because I know if I'm querying something on supernovas, I know what I'm talking about, and I know what ChatGPT is talking about. The moment I steer away from the subject or I stray into some other domain.
That'll be an amazing news headline. Chemist uses
Yes.
ChatGPT to blow himself up.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's an amazing headline.
What were you saying about a fools and tools? You were saying something about fools and tools.
You'll actually have a fool with a tool, really. I mean, and I think most of it, because our education system in India also is being criticized for that only, the rote, the memory, because
Yes.
you memorize things without understanding it. And viewers and listeners, we will be calling Ashwin once again. I'm taking the liberty of saying that we will be calling Ashwin once again on this podcast because we have a lot of stuff to discuss with him. And Ashwin, I love to end on this of this quote from Marvin Minsky, who was asked, about AGI. So somebody asked him, I mean, they didn't ask him specifically AGI. They said, what if, I'm paraphrasing it. So, okay, what happens if machines become sentient someday? So he said, I'm not worried because then because they become as intelligent or more intelligent than human beings, they'll make the same follies that humans do. So I'm okay with it. So on this kind of lighter note, probably we can take some comfort from the fact that yes, certain jobs will go. But I think more important was what Ashwin put it very succinctly, that a fool with a tool remains a fool with a tool.
Will still remain a fool. Yeah.
So I think we'll end on this good note.
That
And
note.
Thank you so
so
much for
Ashwin, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being with us and hope to have you soon again. And Jayanth, of course, I will be seeing you next week.
We'll see you next week.
thank you
Thank you.
for inviting me. Thank you so much. See you guys again.